All right, welcome back. Still here with my guest, Principal Secretary for Diaspora Affairs, Roseline Njogu. Thank you for staying with us. Let's talk money, because that's another big part in relation to the diaspora.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't get over the figure, $4 billion last year. Where is that money going to?
Largely people's families.
Okay.
So when we talk remittances, and a lot of people say, you know, we are remitting a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. $4 billion is a lot of money, but it's largely to people's families. So I'm sending money home to pay school fees for my little brother, or I am sending money home to bury an uncle, or I'm sending money home to pay rent. And so largely about 80% of remittances go to meet family needs.
Okay.
Only about 20% is going into investment. And one of the things we are hoping to do increasingly is increase how much is going to investments, so that because people will always support their families, and they ought to do that, they also have an opportunity to invest and have a good return for their money. And that's largely what we've been speaking about. So that figure of $4 billion has been growing steadily over the last few years. In this year, we've seen about a 14% growth. So we're expecting that the number will close at a higher rate than what we had last year. And you might already know this, that the president's target for us is to get to $1 trillion shillings. So last year was about 500B, 450 to 500B. Kenya shillings, we are looking at $1 trillion shillings annually. In the next few years, we need to hit that $1 trillion shilling mark. We're not asking people to send more money for burials or to send more money for hospital bills, and we're asking them to invest, so that now they have, they're sending money home to buy homes, they're sending money home to take up securities, they're sending money home to invest in small businesses, to invest in treasury bills and bonds and that kind of thing, and all the various opportunities that exist. And that's where I want to take the conversation now, more into, now that the consular situation is stable, as I said earlier, then what do we do with this amazing force? This morning, the president said something I have always said, which is that the diaspora is a decolonizing force. The diaspora is a formidable force. If in small ticket sizes over the years, which is sending $50 here, $100 here, $10 here, and so on, we have grown to a $4 billion point. What if we're able to aggregate those figures? What if we are purchasing real estate? And we are seeing that diaspora doing huge things now, huge estate projects, some affordable housing projects that we are seeing. There is a diaspora group that's setting up a university, and all of this stuff, huge things. So what if we could do more of that? What would that look like? Right. So moving slowly from the place of looking at remittances, which are for subsistence, towards seeing how you can unlock the potential. When I was doing my vetting hearing, when I'd just been nominated to this position, one of the things I came across as I was reading and preparing for that interview was that that figure, as huge as it is, the $4 billion, represents 5% of diaspora's disposable income. Only 5%, not even a tithe.
Wow. Only
5%. So what if you're able to take that to a tithe? What if you're able to take that to 15%? What can you do for this country? If you consider that $4 billion is more than we have earned from tea, from the export of coffee, tourism, foreign direct aid, and think about all the infrastructure we've built around tea, for example, or coffee, or tourism. Remittances, we haven't built much infrastructure around it. But if we're able to do that, then can you imagine what we could do? I was speaking to Bunga the other day, making my case for my budget at the State Department. And I gave them quick math. For every shilling that is put in the State Department for Diaspora Affairs, you get 572 shillings back in remittances. Nobody else is able to do that, those kinds of figures. Returns, tourism it comes second. It's about 1 shilling to 100 shillings. So if we're able to really support the work that we do at the Ministry and the State Department, and support the diaspora in important ways, in getting services to them, in getting information to them around investments, in ensuring that people are patriotic, people feel like they belong, people are well cared for when they're away, people are rescued when they're in trouble, and so on. We would be able to see amazing transformation here. Countries that have done that, countries that have taken the diaspora seriously, have seen a huge growth. I'm thinking about Israel, which depends to a large extent on its diaspora. I'm thinking about Ireland, that was able to do important work around the 2008-2009 financial crisis and call some of its top diasporians home. And I'm talking about people in the C-suite and above, right? And they called them home, and government had a lock-in with them and had conversations. How can we turn this thing around? How can we use your networks to open up things for ourselves? And they leverage their Irish diaspora and their Irish descendants. So they will leverage Obama, for example, who is Kenyan and Irish, of Kenyan and Irish descent. They will leverage that. They leverage the Kennedys, for example. And they will basically say, open doors for us. So countries that have done that, the Philippines is one of the ones that we talk about. India was able to build its, you know how a lot of people go to India for medical tourism. That infrastructure was built by the diaspora. Right. So what is the thing? And this is what I have been challenging the diaspora. What will you bring us? What will you be known for? What will the diaspora in the US, the Kenyan diaspora in the US be known for? What will the Kenyan diaspora in Ireland be known for? What is the Kenyan diaspora in Uganda be known for? That is now the thing that I'm speaking a lot about, because I want us to elevate that conversation a little bit, and I think it can be done. Yeah.
There was talk about a diaspora fund by the Prime Cabinet Secretary,
yes.
your boss. What would that essentially?
It would be an investment fund.
Okay.
It's quite simply, can you put money together and invest in X, invest in a privatization of something? When he said that, one of the sentence that he made right before he said that was that the Saudi investment fund or sovereign fund has now bought, I believe it was about 14% of Heathrow Airport, right? So quite simply, sitting in Riyadh, you control a substantial amount of a huge airport, the other part of the world, right? So can you think about how you're able to bring together funds and say, we're going to do this 1, 2, 3 things. And one of the things we are sort of taking very seriously about that is part of tomorrow's program for the Diaspora Investment Conference is we are putting the diaspora in buses, and they're going to see Konza Technopolis. And they want to see what are some projects on the ground that we can actually invest in immediately. And this is one of the ways we sort of want to whet their appetite, we want to have a conversation around, these are some possibilities, and think about it. And then they will come back to us and say, actually, we want to do 1, 2, 3, 20 things. And then I think it's going to be a very exciting time for us, for me, for sure.
You know, it's almost a reversal of the brain drain, if you will, because I can see Victor here on Twitter saying, is it reasonable to say more Kenyans leaving to diaspora because of manpower, whereby graduates from Kenya are forced to stand by 12 hours as a receptionist in hotels? We have no shame. You know, when you're thinking about engaging, and you're seeing a lot of countries now, especially on the continent, really taking advantage of their diaspora, to use those flows for infrastructural development as well. We saw that a bit in Ethiopia and other countries as well. What is Kenya also looking to do in that regard?
So, and I think that's, you hit the nail on the head. Conversations around labor migration always lead to the conversation around brain drain. Are we sending out, you know, our best? Are we going to be left with enough resources and so on? We have a youth bulge. Our median age is 19. That means we are an extremely youthful country. We have, if you're to draw, but it's fat at the bottom. If you walk outside, the average person you're going to meet is 19 years old. If you do that in Germany, that is, I believe, anything between 44 and 49 years old. that number ought to be staggering to us. Because if I walk outside in Germany, I'm likely to meet a 48-year-old person. If I walk outside these streets here on State House Road,
Dennis Pritt.
I'm likely to find a 19-year-old. What does that mean? That means in places where demographics are largely older, you have people needing more healthcare, right? So they need healthcare resources. And that's nurses, doctors, physiotherapists, all of that, plus personal support workers and caregivers and so on. And that talent is not available because everybody is older, okay? You find people needing kindergarten teachers. You will find that people need skills that are found largely in younger people. So tech, right? ICT skills, creative economy skills, all of those things are likely to be found among younger people. We find ourselves at an advantage where we actually have what the world needs. Currently, the world needs talent. Yeah. It needs talent to power its industries. It needs talent to power its workplaces. You can go to restaurants these days, and in my travels lately, you will find that in some fancy hotel breakfast, you can barely get service because there's one server, right, serving the entire restaurant. Now, if I go to a restaurant here in Nairobi, I am served really fast, and our service is good, it is fast, our hospitality industry is top-notch. Those extra resources that we have, that people are not able to find jobs, we have to be honest and have an honest conversation with ourselves. Do we want people to not get opportunities because we want to stand by and say we proudly stayed home? Or do we take the opportunity that is given to us now because we find ourselves, the stars have aligned. People can find opportunities anywhere. This is a globalized economy. We are now in the global labor market, right? So whether government was looking for these BLAs or whether government was looking for opportunities for people to find jobs abroad or not, people will go. Labor migration is the fact of our generation. People are moving, people are mobile, people go on LinkedIn these days and they find opportunities and they move. What we want to do is say, for people who are not able to do that, for people who've not been as exposed to opportunities on LinkedIn and so on, but they have a skill. They want to make a better life for themselves. They don't have a job here. How can we help? It is our responsibility as government to ensure that our people live in dignity. So how do we ensure that people are living in dignity? You find the opportunities where they are. And then Kenyans are hustlers, okay? Some of them just need a foot in the door, and before we know it, they own businesses, and you have seen those stories. They own businesses, they own trucking companies, they own all of this stuff. And always they go, find opportunities, call home and say, kuna kazi imetokea, can so-and-so come, can so-and-so come, and so on. Yeah.
We promised that we'll take some questions from our viewers. Quite a few coming in here. VMK on Twitter saying, ask the PS to assist seafarers who get recruited to work on ships but are denied U.S. visas. It gives specifically C1D after paying a lot of money. Let the ministry speak to the embassy to allow those who've gone through the rigorous screening and interviews for the jobs get the C1/D U.S. visa.
I know this is something that the State Department for shipping and maritime is working on. Seafarers are a critical part of, and they're a low-hanging fruit as far as opportunities are concerned. Yeah. In fact, to get a seafarer's sort of certificate, Bandari Maritime College offers a course for about 10 days. So for many people who don't have many other opportunities, it is an important, a critical, an easy way into getting a good job. Yeah. If you don't have motion or seasickness, right? So this is something I know that my brother P.S. Kaituko, now in shipping and maritime, who used to be in labor, is working hard on, because this for us is an opportunity to be able to get Kenyans who sort of in that category find opportunities and so on. So that is something that we are engaging on, and that is something also that the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs can continually engage on to ensure that people are able to get the opportunities that they're able to qualify for.
Right. Let's go to another. I believe there is one on scholarships. This must be the one. Yes, Paya saying, as the PS on Kenyan scholarship opportunities to study master's and PhD programs in the UK. I hold 4 unconditional offer letters to study MSc courses in the UK universities. Yet I have been struggling with deferrals since 2022 due to financial constraints. This is a story replicated for so many Kenyans who want to study abroad. What do you say about it, PS?
I mean, so truthfully, Kenyan scholarships might not necessarily exist. And if they are there, they tend to be limited and they tend to be sponsored by one, by a particular organization and so on. It is always easier to get a scholarship from a university abroad or from a program like Chevening or these kinds of opportunities. Some actors like the Mastercard Foundation and so on will have some scholarships. What sometimes the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs has is some countries sometimes will say, we have 10 opportunities or 5 scholarships or 100 scholarships in these areas. And those are usually advertised both on our website as well as the Ministry of Education website with a call for Kenyans then to apply. And Kenyans always take those. We often have opportunities from other countries that people have traditionally not gone to so much, such as opportunities in Japan, for example, for scholarships that sometimes come up and are not very well subscribed to. And we would like Kenyans to be able to take up those opportunities. Opportunities of scholarships, I remember earlier this year, we'd published some to Saudi Arabia. For people to study, and I think it was masters and PhDs in various categories. So keeping your eye on the ministry, so the MFDA's website as well as the Ministry of Education's website, then you will see what opportunities at least have come through us.
We have another one here. Also, will Madam PS enlighten us on what the government is doing to make it easier and less expensive to do the diaspora remittances? Currently, portals like Wave, World Remit, and Western Union have very high charges. Yep, that has been a complaint.
Bringing down the cost of remittances is actually one of the Sustainable Development Goals. It's also one of the things that we are tasked with doing.
Right.
We are engaging the various actors to see how can those costs come down. Whether they are the remittance companies or whether they're the banks, sort of the traditional banks, how can we make it cheaper for people to send money home? Because we know that when the cost of remittance is high, what is likely to happen is remittances will flow, but they will flow in ways we probably can't always see them. So I wait until you're going home and I give you $1,000 to take to my family and hope that you actually take it to my family. One of the things that we also now have is because of platforms such as M-Pesa, Kenyans then are able to send money across in these ways. We also have seen diaspora banks, and by that I mean fully digital banks in some cases. And I have in mind, it's actually just dropped out of mind. There's a bank for migrants based in the U.S. Started by a Kenyan that works to move money cheaply for Kenyans. And some of these banks have a wallet or an e-wallet where you're able to actually move money directly from your bank in New York to the wallet and then pay directly to M-Pesa or pay directly to this. So these are conversations that we're engaging on. And I expect that 2024, a lot of our work is actually going to be around the cost of remittances and seeing how we can bring that down.
Okay, they are coming in Jeff's words, thick and fast. So let's quickly take a look at this one here. Chalet saying, now that Kenya is going to be visa-free as from next year, how will Kenyans who lose a lot of non-refundable money in embassy offices without a guarantee of getting a visa be helped, and of which that money is non-refundable? Yeah, we were just talking about that earlier.
I think we spoke a little bit about this to say that always when you treat people with kindness in the sense that you open up your doors, you hope that there was going to be some reciprocity. And I expect we'll see reciprocity in terms of other countries, particularly within our region, sort of, bringing down their own barriers and their own, and making it sort of reciprocal for us to be able to go this way and that way. But every country has the right to police its borders the way it sees fit. We have had conversations with a number of other governments about high visa fees and, making it contingent upon people getting a visa and so on. Those conversations are all like, look, this is how our government chooses to do things. And while we can engage from a diplomacy point of view, it doesn't always work.
Right, doesn't always translate. There's another question here on the Israel opportunity. Dimoki, who asks, recently the president announced 1,500 casual labor jobs in Israel. My question is, are these vacancies going to be open to the public? And will the public get to know how and when and who to apply for in the jobs? And
I think we spoke about this again earlier when I said that some of the things that GOK does is we kick down the door with a big boot, and then private actors will usually come in and actually find those opportunities. Sometimes what we have then is a government to government. Israel, for example, for a long time has given opportunities to students just leaving the university to work in agriculture, for them to understand the kibbutz systems and so on. And every year, I think about something 150 to 200 students will usually go, and they will learn fantastic things about how to do agriculture in a desert, right? And come back and set up businesses and so on. I expect probably a similar arrangement is going to be seen. But as I said, sometimes you have private recruitment agencies or private recruitment companies now working to fill those quotas. Sometimes what you have is a government-to-government arrangement and so on. So if it is a government-to-government arrangement, then you should be able to see an advertisement on that, either on our website or on the Ministry of Labor's website.
Okay. This next question is on how migrant labor situation gets precarious. Vince Cartel asking if she's aware, ask the PS if she's aware of the situation in Egypt, where government wants everyone to be under a sponsor, and some of them went on their own. They're being told to pay $1,000 and they're being arrested.
I think on this one, I would need to get more detail, more information about the specific issue that Vince Kurt is talking about. Of course, our embassy, we are constantly in touch with our embassy, particularly on Kenyans in distress. I think currently we're handling one of a very sick woman who we are dealing with. So we are always in touch with the embassies to find out what are some of the issues that are emerging from there. Again, for this particular one, I would need more detail about what particular situation they're speaking to. Okay,
so we have two last comments before we wrap. Nantika Chester, who is a regular here, we need to be serious. As a country, we talk of a visa regime when our frontiers are very porous. Insecurity and banditry seems to be the norm in some parts of the country. Terrorism keeps morphing, and there's proliferation of small firearms. We need not to be hasty in such. Of course, that's a security question.
Yes.
Another one here from Sir Nixon saying, I have no problem with Kenya being a visa-free country so long as the pertinent issues like regular power outages, high levels of crime, high cost of production, refugees or asylum seekers, crises, and the like is precautiously taken care of.
I agree that we need to be serious. I think we're very serious as a country. I agree with him that we need to be serious as a country. I think we are serious as a country. I think he raised the issue of security, and I think he's tying that to the visa-free regime. And I think earlier we had spoken about, while it is a visa-free regime, what government has actually put in place to ensure that we're doing that kind of screening so that not just everybody will be able to come in. If, for example, if someone is on a watch list, they're not going to come in and so on. But a lot of work has been done in security as well. Again, I think if we are honest, about a year ago, matters were fairly dicey. I think we saw Waziri Kindiki, for example, in the beginning, constantly up and down trying to stabilize certain parts of this country. And we've seen a lot of that stabilization. You know, Victoria, one of the things that I have seen and I've learned now being in government is when things work, we don't talk about it. We don't notice this. The other day, somebody said, do you remember when we used to have potholes everywhere? And I needed to go back to when the roads were horrible at some point, but because we've had good roads for a long time, That's not even something we think about. We sort of get used to it, and our standards go up, and they go up, and they go up. So if you work in government, it can be a fairly thankless job.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're constantly, but you need to do this, and you need to do that, and we agree.
Yeah.
And government has a responsibility, of course, to ensure the security of both the territory and of the people. Yeah. And these are things that we take very, very seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you equated the role of government to paying school fees, essentially. Yes. You're not going to tout about it.
You're not going to shout about it. No. If I pay school, when I pay school fees for my kids, I don't, go on social media and say #providing, right? No,
it's expected of you.
It's expected.
Right.
So being in government is a lot like being a parent. Yeah. You do the hard work. You really don't expect the glory, and you probably shouldn't expect the glory. It is your job to do that. Sometimes you have to do things for quote unquote the kids. You have to do stuff for the people that is good for them, and you can't always give them full information. I can't always give my children full information about exactly where I'm taking the decisions I'm taking for them. At some point, I usually expect my children to trust me that I'm making the right decision. They don't always, and sometimes I will be upset. But good parents are usually firm on the fact that at some point I will be vindicated and this will be good for us. Of course, it's not exactly the same thing, and I'm not saying governments or states ought to be paternalistic, but very often there is information that we can't always share, not just because of citizens, but also because others are listening. And we have to be concerned about security, we have to be concerned about national interest and so on. So we're not the bad guys.
Okay, so we're just about to wrap up, PS, but just one personal comment here towards you, Edwin, who says, PS Roseline is very eloquent, straightforward in the way she's approaching the whole diaspora issue. I wish such great leadership could be transmittable and emulated by our CSs and PSs in our ministries like energy. Lastly, I wish to request that she helps ease in the visa process. Okay, I don't know which visa process he's talking about, but possibly of another country as well.
Outfacing.
Yeah, we've touched on already.
Yeah.
But, as we wrap up, curious about your background. So we were looking through and we saw you went to Harvard Law.
Yes, I did.
And this was for your master's.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
Oh, it's a long time ago, but Harvard is, as you would imagine it is. It is fantastic, it is mind-blowing, it is exciting, it is sitting in a classroom with people and realizing I thought I was a smart kid, but everybody here is the smartest kid in their village or in their country. There was a bit of an adjustment, right? It was the hardest I probably had ever had to work, just to understand stuff, to keep up. I found out I have an accent. And nobody thinks they have an accent until you're speaking with other people. I found out that I have an accent, and I have to assert myself for people to hear what I'm saying and to slow down enough to understand my accent. I was exposed to fantastic leadership. The person who was dean when I went is now serves in the U.S. Supreme Court. As Supreme Court justice, it was almost surreal, and it still is. But as big and fancy as Harvard is, it was also one of the warmest experiences I ever had. They cared about students from around the world. Yeah. They called us all students, particularly from Africa and India, who don't really experience winter, and gave us hats and those Bashori type hats before winter. They are warm when people are unwell. They continue to be interested in my life until now. If I write to them an email and say I need something, 1 to 3 things, they move stuff to make it happen. I have been out of there for a long time. It is an experience. It is a true blessing that I was able to do this, and it is a blessing I would wish on many, many people.
I'm curious, you talked about the intellectual rigor.
Yes.
That you gain from being in an environment like that. Yeah. How did you apply some of that, for instance, in now the job that you hold, the position you hold?
So this is probably the hardest job I've ever had. No, scratch that. This is the hardest job I've ever had. I keep long hours. I am in early. I am out late, largely because the diaspora is awake 24 hours. In my office, I have clocks that sort of like, you know, like a hotel,
yes,
that tell me what time it is in LA, what time it is in Tokyo, and so on. So I know what the diaspora, how to sort of schedule that. It is trying to buy trust and win trust from people. It is being immersed in an area that is new and having to learn very, very quickly. It is leadership, where you have to build a team, grow a team, sell them the vision, call out greatness in people, be able to build a team and work together while building a team in the diaspora and trying to get people to trust you, to want to work with you, to support the work that you're doing. You find that you are the face of government to them. So there is a lot of sort of juggling and so on. It's also just having to process a lot of information and documents very, very quickly. But there is a bit there that is statecraft, that you don't learn anywhere. You dive in, you look out for mentors, you reach out and rely on your team, and you find that when you rely on your team, because you find a team in place, or a team is brought to you and you work with those people. This is government. You don't just sort of, you don't tell people you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. Right. You work with who you find. And if you're humble and you ask questions, then they will teach you a lot about this is how this stuff is done and so on. So how has Harvard made me a better PS? There's an element of sharp-kidness that you sort of have to bring everywhere. You have to try and elevate the game and so on. It also has allowed me certain contacts in places around the world where I can call up, you know, classmates and former classmates in many parts of the world and say, can you help me do this? Can you help me find a legal aid organization in India? Because I have a sudden crisis among some diasporians in India and they can't afford a lawyer and that kind of. So this has been very, very helpful. Yeah.
Lastly, and I promise this is the last question,
yes,
but you literally built this from scratch, as you've said, a State Department that you didn't have a template for. What is your vision? What do you hope to do? What do you hope to achieve by the time you bid farewell to this position?
4 things. And this is my rallying call now to the diaspora. 4 things. Diaspora investments. I want the diaspora to turn this country around. We've already talked about them being a decolonizing force. I want to see that investment grow in a huge way, at least to that 1 trillion shilling a year that we talked about. Diaspora jobs. The president has very high demands in terms of being able to find opportunities abroad. The new diaspora placement agency is going to be critical in helping us find people good jobs abroad. So diaspora jobs. Skills, knowledge, and technology transfer. I want to give an answer to the brain drain question. I want to see what people are going to be able to bring in terms of ideas, in terms of new ways of doing things, new thinking, new technology, new industries. And finally, I want diaspora to open up trade routes across where they live. So if you are there, help open up trade routes for us, for coffee, for nuts, for braids, for all of the different value chains that we're currently pursuing. So diaspora in trade, diaspora in jobs, diaspora investment, diaspora skills, knowledge, and technology transfer. Those things.
Fantastic. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Madam PS, for coming in, and all the best.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us. This is an exciting, as always, conversation.
Oh, certainly, and all the best, of course, with the